Now let's take a look at the mandatory eligibility group's reviewable unit. So we're going to navigate to this RU by selecting mandatory eligibility groups from the drop-down box. And then we'll select Go to Selected Reviewable Unit. As you can see here, the reviewable unit functions very much like the optional eligibility group RU. There are descriptions of each group available by hovering your mouse over the blue icon. And there are columns indicating whether the group is covered in the state plan, included in the package, included in another submission package, and the source type. You'll notice that the checkboxes in the Covered in State Plan column are pre-checked, and this is because all eligibility groups in this reviewable unit are required to be in the state plan. Again, I would like to draw your attention to the last two columns, indicating whether the eligibility group is included in another submission package and the source type of the group. For example, let's select the checkbox to include the parents and other caretaker relatives RU in this package. We can see that there's an empty circle indicating that this group is not included in another submission package. The source type is listed as new, and what this tells us is that we're starting with a blank version of this reviewable unit. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to select yes to the question that asks if our state elects the adult group. An additional table will appear labeled families and adults. We will choose to include the adult group in this package by selecting the checkbox. We will then select yes to validate this reviewable unit data, and we will save the reviewable unit. If we scroll back down to the bottom of the page and select the drop-down box to navigate to the reviewable unit, you'll now see that the mandatory eligibility groups that we've just chosen to add to our package are shown in this list. Next, we're going to walk through a presumptive eligibility group. So we'll begin by selecting children under age 19 presumptive eligibility. And we'll go to that selected reviewable unit. Before we begin filling out this RU, let's take a look at the implementation guide to ensure that there are no dependencies that need to be met. So we'll navigate to the link for the View Implementation Guide in the upper right corner of the screen, and we will choose to open this link. And this downloaded a PDF, so we're going to open the PDF. We can see from the implementation guide, if we scroll down to the reviewable unit dependencies, that there are no dependencies for this particular RU. So after scrolling through the information, we feel that we are confident in our dependent reviewable unit knowledge, so we will choose to close the implementation guide. Now that we're back on the RU, let's select View All Responses. Again, this expands all sections at once. The first section contains information about the presumptive eligibility income standard. We could view the approved version of the infants and children under age 19 eligibility group, or optional targeted low-income children by selecting the blue links. But we are going to skip that for today's demonstration. Section B asks us to enter the presumptive eligibility age limit. If we click in the text box, a list of options are shown. So we're going to select age 15. The next section, section C, is for us to enter the presumptive eligibility period. In question 3, we will choose option B, no more than one period within 2 calendar years. The application for presumptive eligibility section contains 4 statements that must be checked off to pass validation. We will select the checkbox next to 2. Once the checkbox for statement 2 is selected, we are prompted to upload a copy of the single streamlined application with questions necessary for PE determination. To upload a file, select Upload, and then select the document from your files. After a few moments, your document will be shown below the table, and you must select Save Documents to add it to the Saved Documents table. We're taken to a page that tells us our document save is in progress. We'll wait a few seconds, and then we will click Refresh to continue. And if we scroll back down to the Saved Documents table, you'll see that our document now appears there. In Section E, we will choose A reasonable estimate of MAGI-based income is used to determine household income. The next section details qualified entities. We must first enter qualified entities data before saving this form. So to do so, we're going to select the Add Modified Qualified Entities button. This will bring up a list of qualified entities for you to choose from. We're going to select one of the checkboxes. Multiple checkboxes may be selected on this page, but for now, we'll move forward by selecting Save Qualified Entities in the bottom right corner. And if we scroll back down, question 3 under Qualified Entities is a mandatory checkbox. So we'll select this checkbox to assure that we have communicated the requirements for qualified entities and have provided adequate training to the entities and organizations involved. We must also upload a copy of the training materials for review during the submission process, so we're going to quickly upload a document for this section. Again, we will await a few moments for the document to load, and we'll select Save Document. We're taken back to the Document Save in Progress screen, so we're going to select the Refresh button to continue. Next, we'll scroll to the bottom, and we will validate and save our data for this reviewable unit. You'll notice as soon as we press the Save Reviewable Unit button, the timeline at the bottom of the screen does not change from In Progress. This lets us know that there may be a validation error on this page that's preventing the RU from being marked as complete. So if we scroll up, we'll see that there's red text under Section D that tells us a value is required. By selecting the checkbox to number 1, the red validation text is removed. So once it's removed, let's go try to save the reviewable unit at the bottom of the page one more time. When we do this, the RU will now be marked as complete on the timeline at the bottom and the top of the page. So we know that we've passed validation at this point. Before we move forward in filling out the rest of our submission package, we'll take a look at the mandatory eligibility groups reviewable unit just to make sure that we've included all necessary RUs. As we scroll through the selections we've made in this RU, let's assume that we feel the adult group RU no longer needs to be included in this package. So we're going to deselect the checkbox to include the RU in the package for the adult group. So we'll scroll down and we'll deselect that last option. Now that we've deselected it, we will select Yes to validate our RU, and we'll save the reviewable unit. Because we made an update to this RU, the validation question defaulted back to no, so we have to revalidate and save. Now we receive a message that's slightly different than we've seen thus far in the demonstration. This one tells us that any reviewable units that are dependent on this RU may be affected by changes made to this RU, including possible data loss. It is advised that after we complete, save, and validate this RU, that we check any dependent reviewable units that are included in the package to ensure that they are accurate. This message is received when the primary reviewable unit is removed from the package, but the secondary reviewable unit may be included. So to ensure that we are ready to remove this reviewable unit from the package, let's quickly review the implementation guide to check the dependencies for this RU. So we'll select No to this message. We'll scroll up and we will select to view the implementation guide. Upon opening the implementation guide and scrolling to the reviewable unit dependencies, we can see that the adult groups RU doesn't have any dependencies, so we can move forward with removing it from the submission package. Let's close our IG and return to the mandatory eligibility groups RU. We'll scroll back down and we'll save the reviewable unit. This time we'll select Yes to the warning message. And if we scroll up a little, we'll see that we're taken to a page to confirm the removal from coverage for the adult groups RU. We have the option to revert the changes, and if this option is selected, the RU will not be removed from the package. For the purpose of this training, we're going to confirm the removal. And this completes the process of removing the RU from the submission package. Before we continue any further, I'm going to pause and let Stephanie Bell chime in on this topic.
Thanks. So one of the great things about MacPro is that we've built a lot of logic into the system so that if one reviewable unit is important or the options and choices you make in that reviewable unit have an impact on the options and choices available in another reviewable unit, we've tried to build that connection in. So it makes it easier in that you won't be able to select options that are actually unavailable. But it will take some getting used to. So that's why we've created these warning messages just to flag for you, hey, stop and think about whether there is an impact to this change and whether you need to do anything differently before you move forward. In addition, we've created this option to confirm that you want to remove a reviewable unit either from the submission package or if you were on the optional groups page from the whole state plan itself. So by deselecting it, it removes it from the submission package, or if you're in the optional group, deselecting it from inclusion in your state plan would remove that eligibility group from the state plan. So there's a lot of good logic in there. It'll just take a little getting used to.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. So lastly, we're going to take a look at what making an amendment to a reviewable unit will look like for a MAGI eligibility and administration SPA. We're going to choose state residency from the reviewable unit drop-down box and we'll navigate to that reviewable unit. As you may remember, when we chose to include the state residency RU in the submission package, the source type showed as approved. This means that there is an existing approved version of this RU in MacPro. If we select View All Responses and scroll through the data, we notice that the fields already have selections made for them. This data is being pulled from the latest and greatest approved version of this RU in MacPro. And in the package header at the top of the screen, we will see an effective date shown as a blue link. By selecting that link, we're taken to a page that shows us the approved versions of this RU. There's a table that details the effective date, package ID, and SPA ID from which the data in this RU is being populated. So we'll return to the current reviewable unit, and we're going to make a slight amendment to this RU. We'll change the radio button under section B to no. And again, because we've made an update to this reviewable unit, we'll scroll to the bottom, and we'll select yes to the validation question, and we'll save the reviewable unit. And you may be taken to a save in progress screen, so we will select the refresh button after a couple moments to continue on. To be efficient with our time during this training, we're going to act as if we've completely filled out and validated all reviewable units in the submission package as state editor. The next few steps in the workflow are identical to what we reviewed earlier with our simple submission package.